Welcome to this session on Beyond Alone Evangelism. Accessibility is one of those topics that really, has huge reach across any organization. And my role at Microsoft is actually driving this out across Europe, Middle East, Africa, across different countries. And I can honestly tell you there is no one size fits all for getting buy-in to this agenda. Some people really take it down the kind of very much the human element. Others take it down the technical discipline side of things. Other people are thinking about things like building strength in partner networks and changing the industry. Yep, we know that there is no one model, but this morning I'm joined by three amazing panelists and people I've got to know specifically in the rehearsals for this. And Andy, I think you and I have known each other for quite a few years now. You all have very different jobs, yeah? And so I just thought it'd be useful for us, first of all, just to go around and for you to just explain to people, let's get our audio description in as well, but just explain to people what your actual job is, how you describe it, how you tell your family what you do is always what I say is a good way to, do that. And then also maybe what personality trait you have that maybe suits you to the role of really driving this agenda forward in your organization. So I'm going to go to you first, Andy.
Thanks, Hector. I'm a white male with dark rimmed glasses with, I want to say brown, but I'd say brown and greying hair. I've made the mistake of wearing a salmon pink shirt today. I took the style advice from one of the speakers last night about doing my colours. I would have normally worn a t-shirt. And I'm sitting with a white background behind me in a room with a headset on. My job role, that's an interesting one. I'm business engagement and accessibility manager at Department for Education. I deal with all the stuff internally around supporting our staff with workplace adjustments to be the best they can be at work. I'm also involved with smarter working, and I'm also a bit of evangelist about making the department's internal systems accessible by default. I don't want anything special. I just want things to be vanilla so it works for everyone as a starting point. I don't want accessibility as an afterthought. Got a question about how I got into this space. Lord knows how I got here, really. I've got a background in tech. I'm a geographer at heart. I'm a bit of an outdoors person, but I'm also just passionate about inclusion, really. That's how I got here. And I've done a variety of roles in tech and out of tech. I also was asked about personality trait, and I asked my team about it, and they came up with some very nice things like compassionate and caring, but they also said exhausting and Tigger-like, and I'll take the Tigger-like. I've got slightly boundless enthusiasm, and I'm sorry, I don't have an off switch.
I think we share that. Actually, I'm going to say, it's like high energy is probably one of the prerequisites to get involved in this topic because it can be exhausting at times. We'll get onto that in a moment. Heather, could you maybe introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Hepburn. I'm the accessibility lead at Skyscanner. Audio description, I'm quite tall. I've got long, straight blonde hair, blue eyes, black top and black rimmed glasses. I'm sitting in my home office in actually sunny today, sunny south side of Glasgow. And yeah, I'll just briefly about Skyscanner, just in case people don't know what it is. A digital travel company founded back in 2003 in Edinburgh, tech startup. We now have in normal times, we have over 100 million travellers every month finding and booking travel on our website and apps. So yeah, how I got here is quite odd, I guess. I've been at Skyscanner for 2 years, and I actually started as a UX writer. So I was writing the copy on the website and the app, and it was actually during my interview process for the role, I was asked to do a UX critique of our app or part of our app. And actually all of the issues that I found, really surprisingly, were accessibility issues. I surprised myself because I didn't actually realize I knew what I knew. I'd come from RBS, we'd worked and we'd built accessible products along the way. I was just kind of inbuilt there. So I was really surprised. So when I started as a UX writer, I was like, right, what can I do here to help? This doesn't feel quite right. Joined the Accessibility Guild. There was one on Slack, a Slack group. Did the hi, how are you? Can I help? And there wasn't actually much going on. There had been in the past, there'd been a few pushes to do things, but it just hadn't quite stuck. So I kind of got everyone together. We had our very first meetup in March last year, and it's just kind of snowballed from there. So I transitioned from that UX role into this wonderful role, doing accessibility full time. I'm the only person in the organisation in a permanent role in this, so yeah, it's pretty much just me. But my personality trait, exactly what you're saying, but also I think persistent to the point of annoying, but really trying to pull back before you get that, before you become really annoying.
That's just different words for Tigger-like, though, right?
Yeah.
One thing you said in the rehearsal that I'm just going to make sure everybody hears is you said, Skyscanner are cool. Why are we not doing enough accessibility? And I love that. So maybe that's also with the personality trait you need to start thinking about, is like telling people you're quite cool. Yeah, you want to be cool. All right, so Charlie, over to you.
So, hi, I'm Charlie Turrell. I work for the BBC. I'm a white woman with quite dark hair and a black t-shirt and a quite sad-looking, undecorated Christmas tree in the background of a white room. I am the change manager for the BBC and I look after the Accessibility Champs Network. I joined the BBC about, feels like forever, but it was actually only probably 3 years ago. And I've been looking after the Champions Network since the beginning of this year. So I kind of took over and I've been looking about how it's structured and how we can change it and how we can improve it. And I'd say some of my personality traits, I like people and I like understanding people and what motivates them and how we can get people thinking about things in a different way and their learning styles and understanding them. I think so. Having a group of 220 people that have all got different motivations to join the network and to kind of include accessibility in their work was fascinating to me. And Gareth kind of mentioned the network when I joined the BBC and then lured me slowly into the role because he thought that, I think he originally was like, you'd be good at this. And I thought, oh, it's a completely different world. I didn't know. And all of a sudden there I am working in the accessibility team, which was great. But I think it's that curiosity of people and learning and understanding different ways of working. I think for me, that's something that's a constant thing that I enjoy. So being part of this network and part of this group, I think is it works quite well for me, really.
So we've got a real spread there, right? We've got techie workplace adjustment. That's how I'm going to describe you, Andy. It's definitely interested in like that desktop experience. Heather, UX. Charlie, people, culture change. I'm wondering whether most people who are watching this now have got that kind of role within their organization. Somebody who's really focused on driving culture change. I know this in Microsoft is a huge thing. It's like as we move from previous CEOs to under Satya Nadella's kind of a tenure of the company, it's like culture. It's all about culture and changing that approach as we engage with our customers. So I'm going to come straight back to you because you don't get culture change unless you scale. Yeah. But the kind of the whole point of this session is to really talk about scale, wider awareness, building almost like fandom within your organization for what you're trying to do, getting buy-in. Can you maybe help us understand what are some of the kind of the critical components to building that scale as you build your project out?
Yeah, I think it's odd. I think Gareth was the original lone evangelist and kind of lured people in a room with the promise of a beer and a sandwich and to talk about accessibility. And I think realistically it's about finding your friends quite quickly, finding the environment that you can have those discussions with people. And I think that's really key to building that momentum, having those conversations of how can we work this and how can we get senior leadership to buy into this and how can we structure what we want to do and what learning and resources are there. I think having those conversations is really key. I also think that having the right mindset is what helps the scale and the momentum continue. So, the accessibility champs in our world, they're the voice of the user in every sprint. So they talk, whenever they're talking about design or building anything, it's the user that they have at the forefront. And that's what we try and instill constantly into the champs. It is about training, it's about learning, but the mindset for us is what keeps the momentum going. It keeps the conversation happening. That conversation even spreads wider than the champs. And you're in a sprint and you're having a conversation and someone puts their hand up and says, we thought about accessibility, we thought about who we're going to exclude, or we thought about our parameters, and are we going back to that, not drifting and actually coming back to it constantly and saying, are we still on the right path? It's the conversation, I think, that helps. And I think that's what drives the momentum in the wider organization as well. The conversations start, you start linking up with diversity and inclusion groups, because, you know, you've gone that way and everyone's going, oh yeah, you know, we're thinking about that as well, and we didn't think about accessibility. Now we can have that conversation for our staff, and, you know, for procurement, and for the way that we, you know, we hire people. And so that conversation just grows. And I think it is just about making sure that we all have that mindset right at the very beginning. I think for us as well, like, executive sponsorship is helpful in an organization, but for us it's really different, because it's in the charter for the BBC. It's law, it's what we have to do. You know, we have to represent X amount of the population, and making sure that we're like, you know, everybody's a license fee payer. So we've got to make sure that everybody gets the same amount out of what we deliver. And so the exec sponsorship is key, but it's what helps us drive things, because everybody goes, well, it's policy, you know, and those policies create guidelines, and those guidelines then need resources. And so that just, I think that continues, but having that in any organization, I think, is definitely really helpful.
Yeah, so is policy enough?
I think policy is a good start. I think it helps people have that backing. So if you're working on something, having that policy to refer back to helps everyone go, well, yeah, you know, we're designing this in a certain way because we're doing it for this reason. You know, the policy is just a start. I think it's that policy's there as a background, as a something to keep pushing you. And then once you've got that, those policies do feed into creating very specific guidelines or having those conversations. And then those guidelines that help you with whatever work you're doing, but it helps get people on board as you go. Having that policy to back you up, I think, was really helpful.
Yeah, so Heather, maybe if I could come to you next, but so you know, something like the BBC has it in the charter, is very much viewed as kind of almost like a public service. You know, we're all contributors to it. It's a very different situation where you are, not least just in terms of scale, right? You know, and buy-in, but you still have to do the same job. You still have to get people along with you. What role does policy play within Skyscanner, or are you mainly more going for this kind of, you know, it's the right thing to do, it's the cool thing to do, you know, we need to be cool?
So yeah, we're not governed by many regulations, so it's much more of a choice at the moment, and that I'm sure will change down the track. But it's something that are so, I mean, the business case is huge and varied and long, and there's so many great reasons to do accessibility. And I'm pleased to say that, you know, we feel that we're now beyond that at Skyscanner. The programme has only been running for, I don't know, maybe a year or so. Our first meetup, as I said, was last March. Things started to grow from there. So the momentum started to really build. And it's just, people have just got on board with it. So we have a wonderful set of accessibility champions. We work with a strategy it's a really simple strategy, but it was kind of borrowed from Sam from Verizon, who spoke last year at this. She talked about raising awareness, increasing adoption, and improving advocacy, and continuing to do those things. So I guess just to let you know a few practical things that we've done. The raising awareness thing, we at the very beginning, we ran a few empathy labs that were so successful. So we ran them across 3 different offices. We got staff to come in and sit down, and we simulated different disabilities, and we set tasks to the staff to, you know, go book a flight from here to here, or go and find a hotel that's 2 kilometers from the city centre. Tasks using our website or app, but with a simulated disability. And honestly, it was like within minutes, if not seconds, the realization of, oh, right, this is actually quite hard, or this is broken, or that just made people get on board so quickly. It was so worthwhile. And from that point, I guess we've been, you know, building on that. We've got an accessibility hub now on Confluence that's full of information and guides on how to do this thing in different roles. And we've started doing training across loads of different teams. So we've got design teams, content teams, development teams, product managers. You know, we're trying to reach everybody, and that's going well. But so that's helped the scaling element. But what the biggest win, I think, for us, and this just happened a couple of weeks ago in terms of scaling, we got the word accessible into the strategy, and that it's one word, and it's part of the customer experience and everything. But that one word is just going to be life-changing for us. You know, we can have conversations in areas that we couldn't have had before. we can really push the training in all sorts of ways. It's absolutely brilliant. We can start people actually building this into proper processes that are going to stick. So, you know, this is just new, but in the last couple of weeks, I've had great conversations about, okay, what can we do here? So super exciting.
There's so much in your answer that I want to pick up on. But, you know, there's elements of readiness and training, and that actually feeds into what Charlie was saying about one of the cultural elements we're always trying to build is that culture of lifelong learning, you know, that you're never done. You know, that's definitely a cultural piece. But then there's the measuring, you know, actually measuring the impact you're having. And I think, you know, as we're trying to kind of build a global scale on accessibility at Microsoft, that measurement is a critical component. You've got to be able to show management the progress you're making on that agenda. And you know, in terms of the employee experience, I mean, obviously you do a lot of work with employees with disabilities within the DFE. But when we listen to Heather talking here, there's that kind of, it's the product focus that's all there, right? How do we get that kind of that lived experience of a disability in an organization to be one of those factors that influence the product that you're creating?
Quite an interesting one, Hector. We've done a load of work around getting basically different voices heard in the organisation. So we've basically, with our neurodiversity groups and our Department of Disability group, we've basically picked off SLT. Let's be honest about it. We've gone around the various groups, operations, and we've actually said we want some space in your management committees or whatever. And we've come along and we've basically gone through our neurodiversity and disability action plan. And we're actually saying, this is it. What 3 things are you going to offer us? Not things that we're going to, you know, that we're going to, please, can we have? This is things you're going to offer us, things you're going to do. The other thing that I think that I've done, the lone evangelist, I'm not really a lone evangelist, really. I've just found 3 or 4 people hidden in the organisation that have been working away for years, one of which is my colleague, Jane Dickinson, and Charlotte's a fast streamer who's on this on Tech Share Pro today, and Nick Jarvis Smith for me. I've just put together a small team, and it is only 4 of us who basically have reached out into our tech directorate and then operations group, because we keep the lights on, we keep people working, and basically found people and found our allies really, and worked really hard at that. And we've got a real strap line which Jane Dickinson came up with, which is aiming to be accessible by default. So we've made a big leverage. We're an Office 365 user, a big Teams user, and we've basically turned around to our colleagues supporting us saying, we want all the accessibility features turned on by default. Don't turn anything off. And if you're going to turn something off because it's a security risk, come and tell us why you're doing it, and we'll have an argument about it. Sound a bit aggressive? I don't argue. I'm really a nice guy, Hector, but you know what I mean? It is that point, really. And I think it's one of the things that's helped us internally is legislation. We've got the public sector web accessibility guidelines coming in for internal tools for us as an organisation. That's helped us have a leverage with procurement and also with people that are bringing in systems like HR systems, travel booking systems. We're not perfect, absolutely not. But the fact is we're on a journey like everybody else is. And I think being on a journey, as a lone evangelist, you can't go on a long journey on your own. I think the phrase is, if you want to go fast, travel alone. If you want to go far, travel together. Bit of a cliche, but I think it's definitely the way forward. And I get the feeling just generally, I've got a bad Twitter habit, as you know, just looking at organisations. There's loads of people on that organisational journey that are just massing together over a whole variety of forums and just building progress, really. I think it's a great time actually to be in accessibility, actually.
I think your involvement with your employee resource groups, and I think also that reach you're having out across government to link in with other employee resource groups across the civil service, there's something I think within most organizations that's been interesting for me, that when they realize it's also about their employees and not just, this design for this group of others in the outside world, when they recognize the disability representation have within their own organization, that's an incredibly important lever to pull. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And I would say, I'm not going to talk about a COVID bonus. It's a phrase I absolutely hate. But one of the things about us all working remotely is talk to your colleagues that have got some access needs and about how their remote experience is. Some of them have been, terrible. It's been very difficult. But for some of them say, welcome to our world. Things are hard when you don't have access to all the resources you need. And actually, we are getting better access to some resources. Now we're working remotely than we do in the office. So that's live captions, that's transcripts, that's high quality video. And I think it's just, I think that's a really important one. And I'm massively passionate about nicking other people's ideas, being a neurodiverse magpie, squirreler of ideas. I'm willing to borrow somebody else's ideas, give them credit and use it really. And we've reached out, and one of the things I've been involved with, as you know, I'm a co-founder of the M365 Accessibility Network across government, looking at how we use the tools in Office 365, you know, for best effect. And I think that secret is find your allies internally, but also find your allies externally, because what I've discovered, and I've discovered it, my team will say this very strongly, I try and get other people to speak for me, because people are fed up of hearing my voice, really. So if you get people from externally to come in and speak, or you can get people internally to deliver your messages or your group's messages, that's really powerful.
That's a brilliant segue into my next question, which is, you know, there is so much out there. How do we coordinate the voice of, or the influence of external organizations and bring them into your own organization? Charlie, you've been doing some amazing work, like really proactively reaching out to build that community of evangelists. Could you share some of that experience?
Do you know what? It was something that came about in the middle of a conversation between me and Gareth, and I said, you know, it's great, the stuff that we're doing internally and the network that we've created. And I sometimes I wanted somebody to ask a question to and kind of go, you know, I've noticed engagement is different now, and how can I encourage people to think about this in a different way? Or, you know, why is not everybody coming to a webinar that I set up? And I realized I was the only one that was doing my job in my organization. And I thought, you know what, I wonder if somebody else wants to join a little 5-person working group where we can all discuss things, and we can, you know, chat about what's not working, have a bit of a whinge about things that are really difficult. And I said it in the middle of a conference I did for accessibility in Manchester, and the influx of people that went, me as well, you know, and I didn't realize that I wasn't alone in this particular journey. And so, you know, we've got 120 confirmed organizations that have wanted to join this external group, which is so encouraging and really exciting, because we've now got a whole group of people, and the network should kind of start kicking off in the new year, but a whole group of people that are desperate to have that conversation, who want to go, I've started a network and I don't quite know how to get more people involved, or I don't know how to get senior leadership buy-in, and I don't know, you know, or even go, we've got this really cool resource and I want to share it with everybody else. I think that having those resources and sharing ideas is something that maybe the BBC hasn't always done. I found that we tend to churn ideas internally a little bit and not always look outside. And I think we're just missing that fresh idea, that kind of revolutionary thing, or even just sharing what we're doing and going, this is kind of cool. You know, we've created this thing and we really want to share it with you guys. So for me, to have this network is just, it's so exciting. And it's going to be fun to speak to different people.
And then Heather, obviously coming back to you, when you see the BBC doing something like that and then offering to share everything they're doing, I mean, I guess that comes back to your first experiences of TechShare Pro last year. It's that idea that, you know, in smaller organizations, you might not have a workplace adjustment team, or a conformance team or a standards team. So actually being able to tap into some of those larger organizations is hugely helpful.
Oh, so good. And actually, we're one of the companies on Charlie's list of 120. And when I heard that she was doing this, I got in touch and said, you know, I really want to talk about this like now, because we have a wonderful network of people from really loads of areas across the business, including like legal and office management and all our design teams and all of that. But it's quite an informal structure, and I was really keen, and we've had a chat and we're going to chat more, but about how to just, you know, formalize it a little, empower people more. I want the champions to go off and do more in their own areas. So I really want to learn from the BBC and then from all of these other organizations as well. So can't wait for that. For us, at the very beginning, when we started out, I did reach out to a lot of companies who I knew were doing this quite well already and chatted. So I had conversations with Google and Monzo and RBS, because I was from there, and actually Airbnb and Booking.com, you know, competitors, and still I love that in this area, that people are so willing to share their knowledge and their experience. And what came out, actually, the main message through all of those conversations was that changing the culture was the number one aim here. That was how we had to do it. So that is time, you know, that's going to take some time and it's gradual, but it was just really comforting to hear that from everybody so that I knew that I was on the right track.
There's a risk, isn't there, though, that this all sounds a bit kind of, you know, social value, the right thing to do, a little bit unicorns and rainbows, doesn't it? Occasionally, you know, can we have a quick conversation about this, the people who don't want to interact that way, and actually how do you convince somebody that there is something in it for them? Yeah, you know, so how, you know, this we have this conversation a lot. What's in it for me? Let's say I just don't care about accessibility at all. Let's say I've got absolutely no interest in empowering people with disabilities. Yeah. How do we bring people who are kind of, you know, resisting change? You mentioned earlier, Andy, about security and privacy. You know, the people who just turn things off by default without thinking of the impact that would have on somebody. You know, what's the conversation we need to have in terms of how ready are you to have a conversation with people who are resisting this and having that "what's in it for me" conversation? Andy, could you kick us off on that?
So Andy looks on with a wry smile at this point. We've had those conversations, and can I just say that our technical people and our security people now are the people that turn stuff on.
Brilliant.
And ask us first. I think it is a real hard sell to some people. I'm a 58 tomorrow, birthday tomorrow. I'm a 58-year-old, but I've got Charlotte who's on my team, who's a young fast streamer. I've got Nick who was on my team again, who's 23, 24, 25, and they totally get that it's cool. And it is really cool and it's really exciting. But trying to suggest to somebody with think, along with your day job, we've got just one more thing we'd like you to do, which is accessibility. And I think you've just got to keep banging away with people. And occasionally people just get it. And the thing that's really helped us during COVID, interestingly, wasn't just captions, but when we got what's called speaker attribution in captions. When people could say, hold on, it's Andy Black speaking or it's Hector speaking. And they just got the idea that could be useful for people, not only that have got a degree of hearing impairment, but people that are homeschooling kids, people that have got English as an additional language, because it's another prompt for learning a language. And it's just occasionally just stuff drops with people. Yep. And there's some things that are built into Office 365 that you and I think are accessibility features. That's utter rubbish. They're just business efficiency things. They're just stuff that makes stuff quicker to do. You know, if you're tired, you're working long hours, and you want to subsume information, what do? You listen to it on a web page using read aloud. Yep. You don't read it because you maybe want to give your eyes a rest. So I think those conversations are difficult, and it's quite interesting how you get yourself at the top of the queue or in the queue for people's priorities. Charlie mentioned about, you know, the charter helps her a great deal. That's fantastic. Heather, it's a business, you know, Heather has totally got it that it's a business imperative. There's a lot of disability money, you know, out there, the purple pound. But I think you've just got to somehow work out a way of getting it into people's mindset. And I think that growth minds, and I think we haven't cracked it, but I've got some with my directorate and with the operations, I've got some senior managers that have got that growth mindset, that are infected with accessibility being cool and being not only the right thing to do, but just being a business imperative. You've just got to get on with it.
Yeah, and you know, you mentioned productivity. You know, we've got to remember that most disability is not disclosed in the workplace. So if we're not proactive about socializing work, you know, accessibility, then we're just losing out on all of that hidden productivity there. Heather, could we just quickly talk about brand perception though? Because, you know, there is something here about we're the cool young new kids on the block kind of idea, and we want to be accessible, you know, almost like at birth of the company. You know, and I also want you to have a think about this industry narrative. You know, I do think sometimes that actually taking a leading position on whichever part of our society you're in, whether you're in, you know, taking a leading position in government, taking a leading position in industry, or taking a leading position in media, Charlie, you know, it's this idea that actually we're ahead of the game because we're doing accessibility. Is that an argument that you're starting to see resonate?
Yes.
I'll go to you first, Heather.
Yes, absolutely. We actually just had conversations with the brand and marketing team a couple of weeks ago. A lot's happened in the last couple of weeks about how to have those conversations, because I think now, after working on this for a year, you know, we're starting to see adoption. We're starting to see parts of the product that we can talk about We know we've got a long way to go, but we're in a good position that we can start sharing the work that we're doing, or start actually talking to our travellers to say that actually, you know, everyone can now use us, hopefully. So it's talking to them in a way that's going to make them, our brand team actually, make them listen and go, oh yeah, we can, but let's talk about it in the same sentence as we talk about inclusion and diversity, sustainability, those cool things. Accessibility is up there with that. And the thing is, it's not going to go away. This is just, the momentum is building with accessibility everywhere. Another reason for the coolness is that, you know, it's such a great thing to have on your CV, because not everyone does it. It's a real sought after talent and skill here across all disciplines. So if you've got that, if you've got experience in that, and you can prove that you can do it, wonderful.
Well done. Well done for saying that. This is a future skill. When we talk to people about, you know, what are the jobs of the future, and, you know, constantly, this is a conversation politicians have all the time. It's like, you know, how are we moving forward? What will tomorrow's jobs be? Tomorrow's jobs are going to be digital inclusion. Get ready for it, because society is using technology. You know, it's going to be slowed down unless we bring everybody in. So this is exactly right. So we're getting some questions in, and I'm just really conscious that we could go on for another couple of hours. Maybe I'll ping Mark and see if we can grab, you know, an extension. But we talked about, you know, the importance to measure. But a question has come in is, what do you measure to show improvement in accessibility? So Charlie, as you start to build out your program on culture change, you know, measuring culture change is a difficult one. But what are you looking at in terms of either measuring the accessibility, the technical accessibility of things, but then also the buy-in to the agenda?
I think for us, from a technical point of view, and especially, and I think a lot of my team would support me in this, it's silence is golden for us. So we have, you know, we've got a way that all the license fee payers can come and complain as much as they want. You know, you can go onto the complaints website. If we're not getting any complaints, that's great for us. You know what I mean? And we listen to every single one that comes in around accessibility. We encourage people to tell us exactly what was going wrong, you know, how they would like us to fix it, or if they've got the solution, or, you know, we deal with that. But the silence for us works perfectly. So, you know, over the period of time, like we were talking about before, is how, you know, some people might not always want to buy into it and are a bit stubborn when it comes to accessibility. And you think, you know, it's delving into why. You know, if they're stubborn about it because they think it's going to take a little bit longer time, then we can prove that actually that's not the case, because you're not having to redesign things 3 or 4 times because it's getting blocked at a certain point. If it's a, you know, a money thing, we can go at it from a different angle. But for us, it's like over that period of time, we were going down from big massive complaints every couple of months to now hardly anything. We deal with something big maybe once a year. So from a technical point of view, that's how we measured that. And from a culture and change point of view, I think that it's just been really open with our champs. So I've got an open door policy in the sense of, tell me what you don't like about the network, or what you think you want to see more about. If you thought of a better solution, come and tell me. You know, I'll do these catch-ups with people and I'll say, just give it to me. Like, tell me all the things that you don't like about something, because then I can do something about it. And so when you see people interacting, or we have a Slack channel that we use, and we eventually will migrate over to Teams because it's more accessible. But the way that we do it at the minute is, you know, we've got almost 300 people on this channel, and everyone's having a conversation. You know, they'll post something and go, I'm trying to create this thing, how do we help? And all these people are kind of diving in going, I've dealt with that, or, you know, I'm changing this at the minute, or that's a problem for me too. So it's seeing that interaction happen. So loudness in one area works and silence in another.
I was just about to say that. I was just saying, what you're actually measuring is you're measuring external silence and internal volume. I love it. That's a great one for people to take away. Heather, from a more kind of UX experience, you know, how are you measuring the progress you're making on the platform? You know, and you know, how accessible you are.
It's such a hot topic for me at the moment. So we're looking into tools to help us measure and track our accessibility score, if you like. We haven't actually confirmed which one we're going to use, but there are some tools out there that do the automated testing, but also guide you through the manual testing elements of it. So allow you to set up an audit of a certain section of your product or whatever, and run that audit and then rerun it on a regular basis. So I would love to do that so that we can start making our teams a bit more accountable for what they're doing. but so it starts, yeah. I mean, we have done some audits over the time. We started off actually auditing our design system, which was really interesting. We have a lovely design system called Backpack. We audited that to see where our problems were in terms of our components, and we're gradually, so we've got a score going there. We know how many components had issues, and we're gradually sorting that out. There's also internal measurements that we can do, like the number of squads we've trained, the number of champions we have.
That's what we measure, yeah.
All of that stuff. So there's a huge pot of things that you can measure. I'm just trying to work out exactly the best.
Yeah, and the other thing is, just remember, you've said it's in your mission. Yeah, you've got the word in your mission. You've got to look at Charlie. She's got her culture change agenda. You're almost getting permission to report this progress upwards as well. And I would really encourage you to make sure that that continues to happen. You know, even if they don't ask for it, send an accessibility progress report up to people, because that just gets it in that this is even a thing, you know, that we are measuring, and that will help you push the agenda forward. We really are up against the clock, and I've got questions flying in now on the chat. So Andy, there's a question that's come in I'd like you to take. If I am not the accessibility or inclusivity expert, am I the right person to be trying to start an accessibility champion network?
I would say absolutely you are. I think
if you're asking the question, you are, right?
yeah. So if you're asking, I think you absolutely are. I'm not. You know, I'm not an accessibility expert. I have an understanding of the space, and I think I have an ability to see the bigger picture, which is one of my traits. You know, but I think it is absolutely. I came in. I've spent a long time working in tech, but I've only been really working in this area for a couple of years. This is my first TechShare Pro. Quietly whispers, you know. So I'm a newbie, and I think, yeah, I mean, and reach out and find your allies. And going back to the question about, you know, how do we measure? We measure exactly a bit like Charlie does. If people escalate to senior managers, if it's quiet, I'm happy.
Brilliant. Right, we are against the clock. There was a session earlier in the week where people were asked to give their final tweet of the session. So I just want you to give people a takeaway. The question is, how do we continue to amplify accessibility within our own organizations? Charlie, you're nodding, so yeah. I'm coming straight to you.
You know what? Have the conversation. Like the person said before, am I the right person? If you're asking that and you're talking about it, have those conversations with people, raise the question, put your hand up in a meeting and go, have we thought about this? It's just about keep going when it comes to talking about accessibility. Keep learning. You know, nobody's ever an expert. There's always stuff to learn. You know, and everything changes all the time. And as long as you're keeping on that journey, then you'll be fine.
It's that classic. Something needs to be done about this. Okay, you've got the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, Heather, your tweet.
I'd agree with the talking. So yeah, I'd say get people to hear it, get people to feel it, and get people to do it. Would be mine.
Love it. Fantastic. Andy, last words.
Simple one. Don't ever apologise about promoting accessibility and inclusivity, and just let's do it. Let's get on with it.
Fantastic. Look, I'd love to thank you all. I've enjoyed the rehearsals just as much as I've enjoyed the session. We didn't keep to the script at all, which is always the sign of a good panel discussion. I'm going to hand back to Mark in the studio.